We could talk about Matrix Resurrections because I have seen that.
You have seen that? Oh, let's get into it, baby. Oh my gosh. Oh, so spoilers for anybody watching this now or later. We're just gonna go. We're just gonna go nuts because I haven't made any kind of spoiler content about Matrix Resurrection. I wasn't planning on it, so let's just do this right now in place of that.
Sure. Yep.
Have you? Well, first off, have you watched my review of that?
I have not. I'm sorry. I feel I'm behind on all podcasts.
That's all right. You have no obligation. You have no obligation.
I did see. I mean, I noticed. I see your thumbnails, so I noticed it was the shrugging,
yeah,
which I assume means you don't really care for something.
Yeah, with the added text, I think I put deep. Oh boy, deep breath or something like that. Yeah, I did not like it. There was very, very little in that movie that I found satisfying. But at this point, people are much more likely to have heard my thoughts than yours. So let me hear what you thought.
Okay. So I went into it when I first saw the trailer, I was cautiously optimistic, but as I heard more and more about it, and my YouTube page was filled with why Matrix Resurrection should have never been made. Oh my gosh, this is just all woke, and I'm like, okay, so my expectations were just diminished by a lot. So I was not expecting much. So watched it, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a decent movie. I liked a lot about it. I thought, on reflecting back on it, I feel like they could have cut a half hour. Like, it took so long to get started, I felt like.
Yeah.
And they could have cut a half hour from this whole, am I in a game? Am I not in a game? I don't know what's going on. I felt like that is just, they took too long to get to him being out of the Matrix. And then they spent a little too long in I.O. with what's her name? Niobe. That one.
Oh, yes.
A little long.
Yeah.
But I like the whole heist of Trinity, and then after with Trinity, I would have been really frustrated if they ended the movie with, I mean, it was like a little gender swappy where it's like she's now has the power to fly and he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, all right, fine. But they didn't leave it that way. They're having them both fly at the end and sort of dancing in there. I thought that was a beautiful thing because that's something that we went back and finished the Matrix trilogy for the podcast. And that's something I really appreciated more, I think, especially in this day and age compared to other movies, that it was showing that you need men and women. It's God made us both for a reason. They're both needed. They both have different talents and abilities. And it's not like only men are needed or only women are needed or it's one or the other. It's both. So and I feel like they still maintained that, which is something that I was genuinely worried about. They still maintain that in this film, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that kind of like the, I mean, you could, well, I don't know.
You don't have to agree.
No. I was just gonna
agree, but I don't.
No. I was warring with myself, not with anything you said. I was like, I think that, I mean, Trinity's always been a strong character, and so certainly in the first movie, for most of the time, like, Neo was the inept newbie, and she was the one that was totally, like, she rocked, you know?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point.
And so if this were to be the start of a new trilogy, which I cringe and shudder to think that would be the case.
I heard it lost so much money that they're not going to make it anymore.
Oh, it has lost money. I wasn't sure, because the reviews that I have seen surprised me at not being like virtually universally negative. Like they've been legit mixed. If you look at say IGN and GameSpot and just some of the places that I'm typically like that gamers might go and see reviews at. So okay, so you've gotten confirmation that somewhere that they're not going to make another one?
Not certain confirmation. Is just like perusing YouTube, like, and seeing the the thumbnails as like, yeah, this lost so much money. They're not, or hopes of sequel not happening, or something like that. So I didn't watch the video. Because this is still before I think I watched it, so I didn't want to have any spoilers.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah. Yeah. So what did you think? Like, how recently had you watched the other Matrix movies before watching this one?
So the first one, it's been... Oh, the first one not... let's see, when was the first one? I watched the first one back in November, I want to say, again.
Okay.
And then watched the other two close to when we reviewed them, which would have been late November.
Okay, so pretty, like, basically within about a month or 6 weeks from seeing... Okay, yeah. That was similar to me and Asher. Mm-hmm. Asher really enjoyed The Matrix Resurrections, and I made a point of sharing that in my review as well.
Really?
That because I did want to be generous where I could and admit that, like, this could totally be about my expectations and my desires and stuff like that, you know. And he actually ranks it, of all four of them, after watching it, as his second favorite.
I was going to say, if it's his favorite, I think you need to make sure he is actually your son and not one of these ghosts or demons in your bumpers.
Yeah, he ranked it as his second favorite and Reloaded as his first favorite.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's respectable. I mean, I think the first Matrix has so much going for it that's hard for me not to rate that as my top. But Reloaded, I like a lot about Reloaded, so I can get that.
Yeah. Yeah, so, okay. So we both had watched the other movies pretty freshly before watching the new one. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the action in the movie? Is that a sigh that says I have to think deeply, or you've already given me your answer?
I think I've already given you my answer, but I'll expound. I felt like it was tame. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
It was okay. There weren't a lot of really cool moments that there are in the other ones. Like, I feel like Matrix, Reloaded, and Revolutions all have cool moments in different ways.
Yeah.
Like Matrix, bullet time, seeing Neo go fly back, and and Trinity, kick in the very beginning, and all these elements, and the beautiful helicopter hitting the building, and that wave pulse of explosion. There's just so many great cinematic milestones.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
yes.
Visually great. The Reloaded, the freeway is just so intense, and just I love it.
Yeah.
Every part of it.
Yeah.
And then in Revolutions, I love the whole taking of the what do they call it, the dock, and them trying to, like, with the back, and that whole element, and then the not the logos, the hammer getting through just right at the end, and it's a great thrill ride. Anyway, I don't feel like there's really any of that for Resurrections. There's no moment that sticks out vividly. I felt like, and I think part of it. And I watched it with someone else, and I was talking to them after that. I felt like there were the rules didn't make a lot of sense. Like the whole a swarm thing, they didn't really sort of give a good sense as to how that happens, or that Neil Patrick Harris can slow down, have his own bullet time.
Yeah.
Like, how is that possible? And if he can do that, why doesn't he just do that all the time? It just didn't. There wasn't a lot of consistency in that regard. That I found it was hard to be invested in when those moments happen. So the one thing that I did find hilarious was that the Merovingian was back, all disheveled and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
But the action just wasn't as good. I did enjoy when Keanu was doing his actual kung fu stuff, and I always appreciate what he does, but it certainly felt slower in the past, like he had aged, which, okay, I mean, I'm not gonna ding him for that. But, so how about you? What was your, because since I didn't hear your review, you could summarize or what have you about it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, the bottom line is I was mystified at how low budget and low polish it was compared to the previous movies.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
It felt like the comparison I used when I recorded my review, which I still don't like because it's too harsh. It's too harsh. But just as a starting point that we can iterate on, I would describe it as like the Star Wars holiday special for The Matrix.
That is harsh.
That is harsh. But here's what I'm getting at. Oh, you know what? Here's a better comparison that I should have used. Remember back in the day, before there were streaming services, and like direct to video meant something to say it was direct to video. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like a direct to video sequel to a much bigger budget movie that was well received enough to get a sequel, but not well received enough that they really wanted to put the same kind of resources into it. And so that's what it felt like. And it felt like, and the reason it felt like the holiday special, the reason I would make that comparison is because it felt like it was going for nostalgia so much.
So many flashbacks.
And,
oh my gosh.
And trying to almost wrap things up way too much in a bow. In a weird way. And I said this in my review, in a weird way, it feels jaded to me. It feels like, and I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, but there's that scene, because I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I have no idea. But this is the vibe I get, is that there's that scene where the video game makers are talking about how their parent company, Warner Brothers, they just say it like that. Our parent company, Warner Brothers, is going to make a Matrix 4, whether we want to be a part of it or not. So we're going to be a part of it since they're going to do it anyway. I think that on a meta level, that was the big white flag of surrender from Lana Wachowski saying, listen, folks, I didn't want to do this. But if someone's going to do it, it has to be me. And you know what? I didn't want to do this so badly. I'm actually going to run this sucker into the ground.
Maybe.
Now that is a bit far-fetched. It's not it's not outside the realm of possibility, but it's a bit far-fetched. But what's interesting to me is the Wachowskis said after they made the third one that they were done, that this was the story, and Keanu Reeves made the rounds in media echoing the same thing. It's like they told their story and there's nothing more. I think their story was meant to end the way it did, with Neo and Trinity dying and it being the whole savior metaphor thing that they were going for, and that closed the book. And now at the end, again, I'm repeating some of what's in my review, but I just can't help it. In the Matrix Path of Neo, did you ever play that video game?
No, I know of it, but I never played it.
So right before the climax of that video game, which takes you through the entire trilogy story, but just from Neo's point of view, right before the final fight, the game cuts out, you get a white screen, and two Atari pixelated figures come out and are representing the Wachowskis at that point. And they say, hey, we're the Wachowskis, and da-da-da-da-da. And normally at this point, in the movie, Neo sacrifices himself, and it's, this really dramatic, sobering ending or whatever. But in a video game, the Jesus thing is kind of lame. What you want is a big boss fight, a sweaty palmed action fest, And so instead of the normal ending, after they kind of give that explanation, they take you back to the game, and you fight this giant colossus made of all those Smiths in the Matrix.
Oh, okay.
It's actually kind of cool. But I felt like, they were coming in and saying, this isn't what you want. You don't want the ending that we made for the movie, which obviously we think is great for a movie. You want something else. So I feel like in a weird way, what this could be is, in a very jaded way, Lana Wachowski giving audiences the sweet, sappy ending that is totally outside of their original vision. You know,
I can see that,
the
yes.
way that Trinity and Morpheus and Neo are acting, smiling so much at the end, and kind of
Yeah,
like
it's very
it.
almost campy. I mean, I
Yes.
laughed at some of it. I thought it was fun, but it didn't seem like the tone of the Matrix for
No,
sure.
very out of character and strange to me.
Yeah.
And it felt like, gosh, almost, I could almost imagine it's self-aware. Like they're self-aware of like, or the other comparison I made, maybe this would be hit closer to home even. The other comparison I made, it was like the SNL sketch version of a Matrix movie. It's like
Okay,
it's
I
like
can see that.
the ending there especially reminded me like if Carrie Ann Moss and Keanu Reeves were on SNL and there had been some buzz or something that people hated that they died in the Matrix, then they would do this SNL sketch that redoes the ending with them both being alive and happy and in control of the Matrix and all this kind of stuff. It was that was the vibe that I got. It was so weird, and so that element of oddness combined with the really low budget look of the action scenes and the cinematography in general being very unambitious, I'm baffled and mystified by this movie, and I do not want to see another one. I think they should make a streaming show. Wait 5 years and then make a streaming show that reboots or does a soft reboot of the franchise. But I want the story behind the story. That's what I want right now.
Yeah.
It's like there is a story here.
You want VH1's behind the movie.
Yes. But anyway, but I'm glad that you got more out of it than I did. And
I felt like it was enjoyable. I really appreciated that they were just trying to Neo and Trinity were just trying to come together again and
Yes.
be together, and that was the romantic in me was definitely enjoying it.
Me too. I do have to say that there were some sweet moments between them that I did enjoy. Yeah, and I liked kind of where they were headed with Neil Patrick Harris's character. I think there was a lot of untapped potential in what they were doing with that character.
Yeah.
But I appreciated him there and that casting.
Speaking of casting, I did not like who they got for the Agent Smith person.
Yeah.
I would have preferred they use that guy in Matrix Resurrections or Matrix Revolutions, and whoever they used for Bane that did such a good job.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Agent Smith, be back for this movie. I feel like that would be much better.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like, other than the guy that played Bane, who were we gonna like replacing Hugo Weaving? I mean, his performance is so specific and interesting. And they did approach him about being in the movie, and it was, I guess, reportedly a schedule conflict.
I haven't seen him in anything else, but okay.
Yeah. No, I think it was a play.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other casting. I liked. What did you think of the crew of the? Not the Persephone. What was it? I forget the whatever the name is.
Whatever the new ship is.
Yeah, bug ship. I liked the crew in general. I thought they were fun characters. But what did you think?
Nothing close, I think.
I found them super forgettable.
Yeah, totally fair. I don't remember the names, so I guess that sort of talks to that.
Well, I mean, like it often takes time for people to absorb names of characters in ensemble casts anyway. So I don't think that necessarily is a knock. I thought that their version of Trinity, the young. I think she was kind of like Asian ethnically or something, but she was the new White Rabbit or whatever. I mean, I thought that she had potential, I guess, but it was, it just. I think that the story was spread too thin and should have been much more about Neo. But I mean, I feel like that was started being the issue with that franchise beginning with the second movie. And then especially in the third, it was zooming out and focusing on the kid and him learning to be a man and be in the army and, and like also the dude with the dreads and his wife or girlfriend or whatever who was back.
Yeah, Link and
what's her thank you. Yes, Link and Z. I'm like, I don't mind them being there. That you could do some things with those characters, but they were giving so much time to them, and so I feel like something similar was going on here. I thought Niobe and, like you said, Io. I was like, what are we doing here? Why in the world are we getting a 5-minute scene about how they're growing vegetables? I cannot fathom what is going on.
Yeah. I did like, though, that they took a bit from. So, have you seen the Animatrix?
I have. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So, in the last short of it, I forget what it's called. It's called. It's some play on. What is it? It's like Animatrix something, but I can't remember. Regardless, they're actually programming robots from the real world. They're like taking them through the simulation to try to get them to choose their side. Oh. So it was nice sort of seeing that idea carried out into this, where some of the machines are choosing to fight for the humans.
Okay.
But I thought it was just a bit too convenient, all the ones that were doing it. And I liked the whole little magnetic balls creating people, but it seemed like there were no rules for that. Like the Morpheus character just goes up to where Neo's in prison, and I thought there had to be certain limits to that, similar to holodeck or hologram, like the Doctor on Star Trek Voyager. He's only limited to a certain area until they upgrade him or something. But I felt like it was just okay, you can just go anywhere. That's very convenient.
Oh yeah, yeah. What did you think about that kind of reinvention of Morpheus?
I wanted Morpheus. I didn't want a reinvention of Morpheus. It was confusing to me. I was confused. Why is this Morpheus? This should be. I feel like this should just be a different character. I didn't see the tie to him. I get he was trying to simulate. I don't know, something about bringing Neo out of the Matrix in a new way.
Yeah,
and I guess tying that to Morpheus, but I don't know why he claimed to be Morpheus.
Yeah,
he should have been called something else, I think.
Yeah, there was a rumor years ago that they were going to make another Matrix movie about a young Morpheus. And that
would have been interesting.
And I thought that was surely where they were going with this, is that that Neo and Trinity would actually not be as central to the story as the trailers indicated. That would be kind of like a way of tricking the audience, and this would really be a reincarnation of Morpheus story, like an origin story for him and a new trilogy about Morpheus,
Okay.
So, but it ended up, of course, not being that, and another choice that I'm really mystified by is why go this route with Morpheus? Like you said, that wasn't really something that I observed, but I totally agree that it really could have been a totally different character. That it was Morpheus in name, and I guess ethnicity, but almost nothing else.
Exactly.
Did they say that he had Morpheus's, I don't know, downloaded memories or something, or was there any other tether to the original Morpheus?
Not that I recall. And in fact, even when it's doing that sort of flashback of the room where they meet for the first time in the first Matrix, and he says, "Welcome, blah, blah, blah. This is," I forget all the lines, but he's sort of mocking himself.
Yeah.
Almost like he's not. It's almost like he's. To me, it was saying, "Yeah, I'm not this guy." Okay, well then, why are you pretending to be this guy?
Yeah. Boy, since you bring that up, because I do remember him kind of mocking himself. That only furthers my suspicions that there is something very jaded underlying the writing of this movie.
I could see that. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but yes,
they're certainly at the very least kind of making a meta commentary on sequels. They're doing that in the boardroom or the writer's room or whatever with the video game stuff. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if it's even more meta and more jaded than that. I mean, it's so interesting. Yeah, I want the story, man.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, but I don't know if it was so jaded and cynical. I don't know why. I mean, I can't imagine Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss were under contract for a fourth
Yeah.
movie. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Why would they agree to do it?
That's what's so weird. That's been something I've been going over in my mind as like, if it was this jaded thing that I wonder, that would mean that one of two things is the case. One, that Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves are completely unaware of that, and I think that is very unlikely. That seems nigh impossible.
Yeah.
Or the still unlikely scenario, but I think more likely than the other one, is that they just loved and supported the Wachowskis and their commitment to their original vision so much that they did enter into the jaded, facade of making this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Keanu Reeves, he's not totally averse to making movies that end up being stinkers. He did a movie a couple years ago that was like a sci-fi movie. I reviewed it. And it also is
the Earth stood still.
No, no, it was more low budget than that, and it
Johnny Mnemonic.
No, but a similar kind of concept. It did have to do with transferring consciousness. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was right about in January. It was right about this time of year, a couple of years ago, and it looked very low budget, and Carrie-Anne Moss, I mean, she hasn't been in much, and so she might have just been a little bit more, ready to jump on board. It wasn't really going to damage her career, I don't think. But Keanu Reeves is on a bit of an upswing, with other
John
projects.
Wick
So it's such a mystery.
Yeah. Though I will say, I certainly don't know him personally, but from everything I've heard of him and heard talk about him, Keanu Reeves does strike me as a very loyal person.
Yeah.
I'm willing to I could see him saying, this really made my career in a big way. This, among other things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to honor that by coming back to this character. And I think there is also an element of, there are tons of people that would have been disheartened to see Neo played by someone else, and he realizes that, and this is my character. If I'm able to play him, then I'll play him.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that, as opposed to actors like, oh yeah, I don't want to be typecast anymore, so no, I'm not going to be that character. Whatever.
Yeah.
Do the character.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Oh goodness.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I'm curious, do you find that there's anything, since I didn't listen to your review, anything of spiritual significance that struck you about it?
Gosh, what did I'm trying to remember if there was anything in that review. I don't think there was. I think I was struggling so much to just get through it that when I have that kind of difficulty watching a movie, the themes typically don't stand out. I can't remember. I'd have to watch my own video again to see what I might have come up with.
Here's something that just came to me.
Okay.
So let me know what you think of this.
Yeah.
How do you think we'll be able to tell if when we believe as Christians that we're going to be a part of the new heaven and new earth when Jesus returns in his full glory? How do you think someone who was sent is essentially chooses hell over Christ because they don't choose Christ? How do they know that in their own personal hell, if it seems just like normal life, that they're even dead or in hell at all? Like in this movie, he's not sure if he's making the game or if he's in the game or anything like that. So I'm curious, how does someone perceive themselves to be in hell? Like, how would you even know if you're like, have you ever read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis?
No, but I know it's controversial, and it's kind of on my bucket list. I'm curious about it.
Okay, so the premise for I don't recall if it's purgatory or hell, and C.S. Lewis was Catholic, so I imagine he holds to at least some of the purgatory beliefs.
I thought he was Anglican or something.
Oh, maybe it was Anglican.
like Church of England or something. I don't know.
I know J.R.R. Tolkien was Catholic though, and I thought he
Okay.
converted him. So regardless,
Okay.
I think there is a purgatory. Actually, I have no idea if there's a purgatory system in Anglican.
Okay.
Regardless, this place that the Great Divorce starts off with is like, think of this very rainy and dreary and like city where all these people are essentially just living by themselves, and if anyone moves in next to them, they move away just so they can be by themselves.
Huh.
It's very inward focused, everyone. But there's this bus that comes along every so often, and you can go on this bus, and it takes you up to heaven, essentially.
Huh.
And I think this is the controversial part, because one of the main characters that you're following decides he wants to stay in heaven, and he's able to because I forget exactly why or how that transposes or happens.
Gotcha.
And that actually leads me to think that it is more of a purgatory than a hell. But in that, it's like, how do all these people know that they're in this state if they're so self-focused? And so unless it's more cartoony and it's a literal like demons are eating you and stuff, I think then you kind of have to assume that you're in hell.
Yeah.
But if it's just an eternal separation from God, and that's really what it amounts to, where you're just all inward focused and just can never find happiness in anything, I don't know how you sort of perceive yourself to be there, if that's sort of where you put yourself. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I think I'm tracking with you, at least some. That's really interesting. I think I'd have to like take some time to look up like chapter and verse and stuff, but I think people will know, at least initially, if not eternally, they will know that they are in hell because they'll face the judgment of Christ. They'll face the judgment seat of Christ.
Oh,
and,
that makes sense.
And it says, in Scripture, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And so, even as they've chosen their destiny, they'll know. And but I think that what you propose as like what if hell is like this? I'm very open to ideas of hell that are similar in a number of ways to life right now, because every human being will receive a resurrection body, two very different kinds. But we will all be physically resurrected and then go about a physical existence, not some kind of weird other dimensional limbo. And so what my study mentor has kind of said that he imagines could be a possibility is, he says, I imagine something like a planet somewhere that is just that is tucked off somewhere. In fact, his idea reminds me a little bit of the planet Apocalypse in DC Comics, because it's kind of in its own little pocket universe, so separate from all other universes or whatever. But anyway, but yeah, something like that where there are buildings and there is even commerce or these attempts at civilization that are so much more disastrous than what we are, seeing in this world now. And then to basically answer that one question of would a person know they're in hell, until I would study this further, because there could be some scripture that I would look at and say, oh, well, I'm totally wrong about this. But for now, in my ignorance, I will allow for the possibility that people in hell could become so deluded, so self-deceptive, that they will come to believe all kinds of self-deluded things, and may forget things that they knew once. I mean, eternity's a long time, and a corrupted, resurrected body is just something that we don't really have a grip on what that is going to be like. So yeah, that's a really interesting kind of scenario and fuel for speculation.
Yeah. Now, so I'm curious. I feel like I hold to this belief, and if you want to get back to Matrix, that's totally fine. But going off this thread, I'm similar to. I think where I land is yes, we will all spend eternity somewhere. But I I think I've heard some cases for annihilationism, that being that you will spend like people that choose hell will spend a certain time there, and then God will essentially make them like they never existed. And the thing that sort of attracts me to that idea is this sense that why would God continue to give this sort of his fuel, essentially the life of us, of a being that is there forever? I guess I don't understand how that seeks to glorify him anymore.
Yeah.
If you continue to do that. But do you know of any scripture that's opposed to annihilationism off the top of your head?
The first thing that comes to mind is that the same Greek word that's used to describe the length of heaven, forever, eternity, eternal, that same Greek word is used to describe the length of and duration of hell. So you'd have to see if there's any scholarship that can provide a counter to that argument, in my mind. And then what was the other factor? There was the idea of why would God continue to give life to that one is I don't think there's as strong of an argument for, because that's a good question. If I were to try and off the cuff come up with something, I think it would maybe have to do with them being image bearers.
They would still be image bearers.
They would still be image bearers, and that there would be something in their existence that would provide a testimony, a monument to both God's love and in what love is. Love is a choice. We're not automatons, and so this ongoing existence of these that chose the opposite says something very strong. And then also, this was an interesting thing in a theology textbook I read years ago that was more kind of providing a potential counter to the idea of why would God eternally punish people for finite sins. Now, first, before I get to what they observed, first I would say that I think you've got enough argument in that God has infinite value, and so it's not about the length of time involved in sinning against God. It's the fact that you sin against one of infinite worth that merits an infinite punishment of some kind. But setting that aside, this person suggested that while in hell, and this is actually in a video that I put up years ago about the idea of hell, a person could continue sinning. And so let's just say for a moment that a finite sin does only deserve a finite punishment. Well, first they're going to go and be in hell to suffer the punishment due for what they did in the body in this life. But then in the midst of that, they will have continuing attitudes toward God and attitudes toward people in their past. So their heart will continue sinning. It's even possible that they will be able to interact with others in such a way that they could do sin toward others that would still not be outside of God's wrath and justice for those other people. That in God's sovereignty, it would all work out perfectly, so that there's no overkill. But all that to say that I think that's maybe another potential argument one could give for why we would not lean toward annihilationism, because they may be continually committing sins. But I don't.
That makes sense.
I don't think that's the strongest argument. I think the first one that comes to mind in me is, well, you got this hurdle of this Greek word that you've got to figure out. That next to each other, same passage, same context, the same word is used to describe the length of both. And so I don't know how to get around that, but there may be arguments out there, and I'd be interested to hear them from those who know Greek a lot better than I do, which is to say, almost not at all.
It's all Greek to me. Back to the Matrix. I'm curious. I don't know where I heard that you say something. Oh, this was in your Paeter's brain, that you were thinking you'd get called out or pushback about using Lana Wachowski. Is that her name?
Yeah, Lana Wachowski's preferred pronoun. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you gotten any of that yet, or come across?
I have not. I have not. I mean, maybe that's just my.
Well, let me start. How
Yeah.
dare you rabble.
No, maybe that's just kind of my insecurity or jadedness, or just based on some past experiences with YouTube. I figured it would come from YouTube and like random user names that I am not used to interacting with, probably.
Yes.
Or maybe no. Actually, that's. I think from the conservative side, I can think I won't name usernames, but I can think of some usernames on YouTube that might take issue with me kind of acquiescing, as it were, to using Lana's preferred pronoun. But no, I mean, I haven't. What do you think about that whole thing and trying to navigate that territory?
I think so. Here's how I sort of come down. I haven't given it a lot of thought, but here's where I come down. If you're interacting with someone personally, then I think it's respectful to use the pronoun that they would prefer. But in terms of generalities, I think men you should refer to as he's, women should refer to as she's, mixed, there. I think just the normal pronouns. I don't necessarily agree with someone saying, I'm a Floybinoid. I'm like, okay, can I just... No.
Yeah.
That's just beyond the pale for me. At that point, I'm just going to call you your name and just say your name as the third person if I need to. But that's sort of where I land on it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about public figures like you are, I think that's, in a sense, like you said, you don't know if she might be watching your content. So I think it makes sense to use their preferred one.
Yeah.
But I would, so speaking generally, I don't like the idea of it, but if you're just person to person, even in that context, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think that it really depends on who you're having that conversation with. You know, if I was talking about Lana Wachowski with Lana Wachowski, I'm gonna use her preferred pronoun. If I was talking about Lana Wachowski in content creation, I'm still going to do that. If it was in a private room with a certain group of people, well, it depends on who those people are, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's also going to, like, if I'm just me at home and it's my wife and that's the only person I'm talking to, well then, you know, I'll probably talk in a way that's a little more, that's less concerned about, you know, how someone else would perceive it and just more to the heart of kind of what I think or what I suspect or what I'm processing and stuff. And so
absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it seems to me that something like that is the wise way for us to go, is to, we tend to, and I might have even said this in that Paeter's brain thing, but we tend to, with social media, just kind of like not think about who is taking in what we're communicating, you know, and we'll just speak in terms of these broad, sweeping terms of like position, like my position is this, and so this is how I'm going to talk about it with everybody, or at least online or whatever, you know, and I think we have a lot of catching up to do with the technology we've created in the internet. We have a lot of social skills catching up to do in figuring out how do we now interact with each other when suddenly we can be talking and it's effectively like being at a podium in a giant football stadium. You know, it's actually potentially more than that. It's potentially, we can't fathom what it potentially is, because potentially it's the whole planet.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Potentially it is, for sure.
So it's tough and weird.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons I'm pretty much getting off Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I on Facebook in so much as Messenger, because some people still message me through there. But I haven't checked those. Let's see, Facebook I checked. Like if I get an email notification, I'll check sometimes, but so that happened today. But otherwise, I'm just not on Facebook. And Twitter, I forget the last time I checked that. So it's because I'm I much rather. I'm actually gravitating more toward YouTube and other other YouTube less restrictive, more freedom-minded YouTube alternatives. We'll say, because I feel like there's something about you can see someone. They're not just a name.
Yeah.
You hear their voice. You see their expressions. I think there's something more connective about that.
Yeah.
That gets us closer to what in real life
Yeah.
communication is like. And I prefer that medium more. Yeah, some of it's produced and some is like, yeah, I get that it's not a perfect corollary to in real life, but I still think it's closer than just text on screen. And even though now when you go to your comment section or whatever, those are again just names and stuff. But I think that's like you said a long time ago, and I forget when it was, but you said something to the effect of you realize that people that don't know you, why are you giving them any sort of I forget how you put it, but like if there's a negative comment from someone you don't know, then it's just like noise. It doesn't strike you as opposed to someone that knows you and is saying something negative. That would certainly hurt more. You would hope that someone who knows you would just be constructive.
Yeah.
But I got a comment on a video just the other day that is like, there's some like, you guys are so loud. Oh my gosh. You don't know it. I bet you haven't, no one listens to you or something. It's like, okay. And out of morbid curiosity, I go over their channel and they have like no videos, 7 subscribers. I'm like, okay, I'm not that concerned about what you have to say. Fine. You just you need to voice your pain into the void, whatever.
Yeah.
So thank you for that wisdom long ago.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling to just figure all this stuff out myself. It's weird to make content that is unapologetically and clearly for a Christian audience, and yet when I'm making it, I am always in the back of my mind thinking that someone that is very antagonistic toward Christianity, but that God still may use my content to reach, could be watching. So it's like I'm thinking in terms of like in-house. I'm talking to Christians in-house. It's an in-house discussion, and yet there is this weird, always present sense of outreach and evangelism. Realizing that someone might be just quietly lurking to get a taste of what Christianity looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So go ahead. Go ahead. No, you.
I was just gonna say, we don't know how God is gonna use the things we're doing for His good and His ultimate purpose, but it's hopefully we'll get to see some of that in this life, but if not, in the next. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna change to a different topic that we actually don't have time to discuss, but I still want to ask it anyway. Did you see Spider-Man: No Way Home?
I have not seen any of the Spider-Mans.
You've not seen any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies?
No. I just saw Endgame a month ago. So.
Oh, you're blowing my mind right now. You probably told me this before and I just forgot, but okay.
No, I think last time we talked, I had not seen Endgame yet, but I think that probably blew your mind that I hadn't seen it.
Okay. Well, hey, let's talk Endgame briefly, because my wife, over the Christmas break, finally caught up and was binging a few Marvel movies and watched Endgame, and then watched the 2 Spider-Man movies after that.
Okay, cool.
And but anyway, so yeah, spoilers for Endgame. Anybody listening? What'd you think of? I mean, did you have either Tony's death or Steve Rogers' aging spoiled for you?
Yeah, I think they both kind of were. I didn't know for sure about Tony. I had hints of that, that I thought that might be the case. So it wasn't an utter shock. I had also seen the cool moment of Captain getting the hammer of Thor, so that was spoiled for me.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
But the overall story of like the time travel and stuff, wasn't spoiled. I didn't really understand that was happening, even though they say this isn't so Back to the Future is crap. No, you're using Back to the Future logic in your movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the Steve Rogers age thing that was spoiled to me. Not him being aged, but him choosing to stay back in the 50s.
Oh man, because that's like, oh. Well, hopefully you at least still got the feels when he was dancing with Agent Carter.
Was sweet. But honestly, the part that gave me the feels the most was Tony and his dad when they're back.
Oh, yeah.
That moved me so much, how he's telling him that you're going to be a good dad. Or I forget exactly the phrase he used, but it was super touching. And
reconnecting with his dad after his...
Yes.
Oh, man. Is your dad still living?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Him and I don't have a great relationship.
Okay.
I mean, it's civil, but it's not very deep. So
yeah, but then maybe there's some kind of subconscious thing there where you're like, boy, I'd like another shot. You know, I wish this could have been different or something. Because like my dad, it sounds like my dad and I probably have a better connection than you and yours, but we're not really close. We don't have we don't have very much at all in common. You know, and so I wonder how much. But I mean, I still always felt loved by him. Well, except for when they forced me to be in the Phoenix Boys Choir. That's still there's still some things I'm working through in that regard. But when have you seen Frequency?
No, you've mentioned Frequency before. I know of that. That's Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel. Right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Run, don't walk. Run, don't walk. See Frequency. Oh,
okay.
And you like time travel movies, right?
Yes, I do.
That's
and
Frequency.
I know the premise of that, so it always sounded appealing to me. It's one of those where you'll see a movie like a trailer and like, oh yeah, that looks good, and then you never get around to watching it. So it's just one of those.
Listen, if you're moved by father-son plot stuff, and you like time travel movies, then you have to see Frequency. Okay. You have to see. You got to do that this weekend. I'm just going to plan your life for you.
That's fine. I could use some of that.
Oh,
so that's
man. It's like, for years, I don't know. I think I would still say this. It's the best time travel movie in the world, and no one even travels through time.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Do you know the premise of the movie?
So it's like he hears his dad over the radio or something?
Yes, there's an Aurora Borealis going on, and it's doing something weird and supernatural with the radio waves, or sci-fi-ish with the radio waves, so that the CB transmitter that he inherited from his dad, that he just decided I'm going to put this together and just tool around with this, you know. He gets it working, and he is talking to his dad, who is back in, decades prior on the same CB radio, and so they're talking to each other.
Weird. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and and there's, and there's great suspense stuff too, because there's kind of a murder mystery involved as well.
Really?
It's like there's like a cold.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a cold case that the son is working on that his dad is able to actually help him with.
Oh, that's cool. I had no idea of that element. Very cool.
Yeah. So I highly, highly recommend checking out Frequency. But
yeah, I think the thing that I actually connected more just because of how I see my kids. So me as a dad, the part that connected with me with Tony and his dad. But yeah, I think there probably is an element of me wanting sort of that deeper connection with my dad. So I totally get that.
Well, it doubles up for me. Like I noticed that. Like before I had my own boys, I was a sucker for a father-son story, and now I'll go back and watch some of those same movies again, and I will appreciate them from the entirely other side of the drama, And it's like, oh my gosh. So I mean, like, I don't even know if I've seen Frequency since I had boys. It's been a while. I think.
Oh wow.
I think I have once, but not. They weren't at the age that, like in the back in time scenes. Jim Caviezel's character is a boy that is about my boy's age now.
Oh, interesting.
And so
it sounds like you need to run, don't walk.
Maybe. Maybe. I could watch it with them, actually. They could handle that movie. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. All right. Well, Holly and I are getting away this weekend, so this weekend won't be the one. But like, you know what? Maybe I'll put that on my list as a possible March Movie Madness movie to watch with my boys and see what they think of it. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I gotta go. Awesome. But thanks so much. I love. I was like, man, I think Francisco's the only one that can make it because like you were the only one that responded. Okay. I didn't give a lot of times to choose from. It just that was the nature of the schedule this month. But I was like, man, if Francisco doesn't show, I'm gonna have to figure out what to talk about all by myself. But I don't think since maybe the first year of doing these I've had that ever. So, but
you're just by yourself.
Where I'm by myself. There's always somebody that shows up a few minutes in, and I love the chance to talk one-on-one with people, and like I love chatting with you and just getting into stuff. So this was great, Francisco. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Paeter. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Talk to you later. Summer insanity.
Liberate butter.